As a longtime fan of the Halo franchise, the past decade of Halo has been extremely rocky and frustrating. 343 Industries has never really felt like it found its footing with the franchise, and for the last couple years, post-Halo Infinite, fans have been left in the dark on what the future holds. We finally got our answer a couple weeks ago, as 343 Industries officially rebranded itself to Halo Studios, announced their move to Unreal Engine, and confirmed that multiple new Halo titles are in development. The studio wants players to treat this not just as a rebrand, but the third chapter of the franchise and seemingly a new beginning. 343 Industries has been the steward of the Halo franchise for 17 years now, if you can believe it. And in that time, they've released 3 mainline Halo games to very mixed results across the board. I enjoyed the story of Halo 4, but didn't particularly care for the multiplayer. I played a good chunk of it, but I distinctly remember disliking most of the maps, and loadouts really just made it not feel like Halo anymore. And to be fair to 343, that started back in Halo Reach. When Halo 5 rolled around, I was extremely excited for the game, as Blue Team, we'll get to that later, was introduced, and then the campaign story was a complete mess. It also had a marketing campaign that was more interesting than the game itself.
All hail the conquering hero. The one who was supposed to save us all.
On the multiplayer front, Halo 5 was so focused on the competitive scene that the series had essentially completely lost its identity by that point. I couldn't even tell you any of the game's maps, as they were just drab arenas you'd find in any other competitive shooter today. Finally, in 2018, 343 released this trailer announcing Halo Infinite and the Slipspace engine. And I remember the excitement from the crowd at that press conference because I was there. A musical note from the trailer was enough to get the room cheering in excitement. Halo was back. Or so we were led to believe. The story of Halo Infinite's development is well documented by this point. The game was meant to be much bigger, but in 2019, the studio decided to cut almost 2/3 of the entire planned game, according to Bloomberg's Jason Schreier. If you didn't know, Infinite was supposed to include a vast open world that resembled a Zelda-like experience, something that is evident from the moment you finish the prologue of the game. Infinite was meant to launch alongside the Xbox Series S and X in November of 2020, but was delayed an entire year to December 2021 once Microsoft brought Halo's former cinematics director, Joseph Staten, into the studio to help get the game in a launchable state. It's evident throughout Halo Infinite that it went through serious development troubles, as there's hardly any environmental variety in the open world, the campaign missions felt mostly tossed together at the last minute, and the narrative is largely delivered through collectible audio logs, with a few cutscenes sprinkled in here and there. Infinite left me with immense disappointment once the campaign was over. I was shocked at how unfinished it felt. I went back to the announcement trailer moments after the game abruptly ended and wondered, where the heck is that game? I had assumed, based on the ending of the campaign, that 343 would continue to expand on the story, because the game was called Infinite, but alas, that never happened, and Windows Central's Jez Corden, who is known for his insider reporting on Xbox-related items, later confirmed that there were never any plans outside of conversations to bring campaign expansions to Infinite. I was extremely frustrated by this revelation. The foundation of Infinite was good. 343 had finally gotten the gameplay to a point where it felt like Halo again. The franchise had felt like it had rediscovered its identity, but it was unfinished, and once again, just like after Halo 5, the franchise felt directionless. For the next year after Halo Infinite's launch, 343 would be playing catch-up. The game launched on December 8, 2021 to positive critical reception, but campaign co-op and Forge did not arrive until November of 2022, and split-screen co-op, a staple of the series, was cancelled despite promises from 343's leadership it would be a priority. Infinite's multiplayer also failed to keep up with the live service behemoths of the industry, with its second season not launching until May 2022 and lasting for 6 months, resulting in only 2 seasons for 2022. And of course, I can't forget the Halo series on Paramount+. The less said about Season 1 the better, but while Season 2 wasn't as bad, the damage was done by that point. The show was cancelled just a few months ago to little surprise. A show that really should have been an easy win for 343 if they had just adapted the existing story from some of the excellent Eric Nyland books we'll talk about later, but they instead tried to do this whole silver timeline bullshit, added in a weird romance plot that included butt cheeks, and spent hardly any time on the actual fall of Reach. Yeah, let's not talk about that right now. It was clear by 2022 that 343 Industries needed an overhaul. Faith in the studio's leadership was at an all-time low, both internally and from the wider gaming community. After the release of Halo Infinite and the Paramount TV show, 343 Industries started to go through significant changes, something that I think may have gone unnoticed by the wider gaming community, as these happened over the course of 2022 and into 2023. Most of the leadership team that founded 343 is now gone. along with many other developers, as layoffs hit the studio hard in February 2023. This includes head and co-founder Bonnie Russ, head of transmedia and entertainment Kiki Wolfkill, franchise creative director Frank O'Connor, and Joseph Staten, who came to 343 from Xbox Publishing temporarily to help launch Infinite, went back to Xbox Publishing for a short stint, and then later left the company altogether for Netflix games. Insiders cited a lot of fundamental issues with the studio, including a lack of collaboration with the campaign team, not having enough feedback on things as they were developed, and a leadership team that really just didn't have experience actually making games, as they mostly came from the publishing side of things. Others also cited having to develop the Slipspace engine in tandem with the game to support Infinite's live service ambitions as another roadblock. In 2022, rumors started to circulate that 343 would be moving Halo to Unreal Engine, and October 6, 2024, that was officially confirmed by Xbox and Halo Studios. In the Xbox Wire post announcing the new path ahead for the franchise, Chief Operating Officer of Halo Studios, Elizabeth Van Wyck, explained that the studio is moving away from the Slipspace engine to the Unreal Engine so that going forward, the team could just focus on making games and not trying to develop the tools alongside of it. Switching to Unreal Engine will also speed up the onboarding process for new hires at the studio, as the toolset is widely used across the industry. I know a lot of people hear Unreal Engine and feel apprehensive about it, as so many game studios are using it now, but it's important to note that a lot of major studios don't just use what comes out of the box. The engine is malleable, and studios often customize it to fit their needs, often essentially making their own version of the engine. I think studio head Pierre Hintz, Van Wyck, and studio art director Chris Matthews did a good job of addressing many of the complaints that were levied at the studio in the Wire post, especially when addressing the structure of the studio and making sure the people making the games are the ones in charge. At the end of the day, if we build the games that our players want to play, that's how we'll be successful, explained Van Wyck. That's what should motivate what we build. That's also what this structure has done. We want the people that are day in, day out making the games to be the ones to make the decisions on the games. But, as we're used to with these kinds of things, the proof will be in the pudding. Halo Studios has a lot of work to do in building trust with their players again after multiple disappointments over the past decade plus. Just changing the name of the studio isn't going to make anyone forget about the legacy of 343 Industries. The Foundry showcase they presented looks really nice, of course, and I'm glad the studio is staying quiet while they work and will only show things when they're ready. The old leadership team of 343 had a very corporate way of doing things, delivering broken promises and scripted speeches. This time around, Halo Studios needs to do a hell of a lot more showing than telling.
What made Halo successful at the beginning? What is the legacy of Halo, and what's the soul that we want to bring forward, and what's the craft of making Halo games, and how do we set our studio at best to go deliver on that?
So, where does Halo go next? Personally, I think its future may actually lie in its past.
New Mountain Dew Game Fuel. Cranked up for Halo 3. Chug it and have no mercy.
When I first heard the rumors about Halo Studios going back to remake the original game, I was pretty apprehensive about it. I don't want to replay the same trilogy that I already enjoyed. I, and I'm sure most others, want to explore new things in the Halo universe. But as I was writing the script, I came around to the idea a bit more, as it could be a good starting point for Halo Studios as they transition to Unreal Engine 5. As much as I love the original Halo, I can't say that it's aged super well when I go back to replay it, and I wouldn't be against seeing what a true modern version of that game would look like. Not to mention, it would lower the risk for the studio as they release the first Halo game built on Unreal to hammer out any issues or kinks for other upcoming releases. Getting the gameplay feel right for Halo is such an important factor for the franchise, and until we have the game in our hands, we won't truly know if Halo Studios can achieve it on Unreal. Doing a Halo remake is a safe option, and one that I've come around to thinking they should take. If they can successfully remake the original game on modern hardware, it would be a good way to win back a lot of the core audience they've lost over the years. Beyond a Halo remake though, I'd like to speculate a bit on where the franchise will be going next. One of the biggest surprises of Summer Game Fest this year was that the Coalition isn't actually making Gears 6, but rather Gears of War E-Day. This came as a shock, as Gears 5 ends on a big cliffhanger, but the announcement was extremely well received regardless. While Gears 4 and 5 are good games in their own right, fans of the series weren't really as invested in the storyline as they were with the original trilogy, and the same could certainly be said for the recent mainline Halo games as well. Personally, I wouldn't be surprised by Halo Studios taking the same route as the Coalition, dropping whatever they were building with Halo Infinite, and going back to explore an earlier time period in Halo that is familiar but also fresh to longtime fans of the series, just as the Coalition is doing with E-Day. Maybe they'll be exploring more of the origins of Halo's Blue Team, the squad that Master Chief grows up with, and is heavily featured in the Halo novels from Eric Nyland, Troy Denning, and others, and briefly introduced in Halo 5 Guardians, much to the confusion of anyone who hasn't read a Halo novel before. Regardless, whatever Halo Studios decides to do, I do think they should play it safe for a while. Get the foundation right with a true remake of the original Halo, featuring the great sandbox multiplayer the games are known for, a killer soundtrack, and for God's sake, a good writing team. I don't know if Halo will ever be the behemoth franchise that it once was, but I dearly hope that franchise does find its footing once again. Halo Studios and Xbox as a whole have a lot to prove going forward.
This video is brought to you by GameMaker, the free, fast, and easy-to-use 2D game engine that helps power modern classics like Undertale, Hotline Miami, and Hyper Light Drifter. Starter templates, official asset bundles, and a wealth of tutorials are available to help bring your ideas to life. And you can export and share your game for free on all non-console platforms. But you don't have to take my word for it, I'm just some jerk. We have an actual bona fide GameMaker on hand.
Oh shit, that's me. Yes, I've been using GameMaker for a long time. It's probably the most powerful and easiest to use engine for making 2D games out there, suitable for both amateurs and hardcore coders, and with all the Steam and console integration stuff for when you're ready to start monetizing your hobbies. I used it to make my recently released game, Starstruck Vagabond, which has already delighted thousands of sci-fi cozy game aficionados thanks to GameMaker being so bloody great.
Head on over to the GameMaker link in the description to begin your game development journey today.